So today I want to talk about Sila, moral virtue, and we're going through talking about the various Pāramīs, how to cultivate these qualities that are so crucial, imperative to the development of the mind and the development of our character, such that we can live happily and free from worry, even though there are all kinds of dangers everywhere in human life. And, many people fear the end of life. There's all kinds of fears in the process of living in the world. And then there's that mysterious end. And of course, there are a lot of people who don't think it's mysterious. They have a very firm belief in what might happen at that time. And, those of us who study the Buddhist teachings, we know that we can't say exactly what will happen, but we trust that our practice, our development of virtue and morality, our practice of developing kindness and compassion, and the way we interact with people and other living beings, and the way that we conduct ourselves has a huge positive impact, that we can reflect on our good qualities and our good actions and our generosity, and that will be our safety here in this world and in the next. But it's not the only belief that people hold, of course. And as some of you know, I went back to my home area in northwestern Indiana a few months ago, and I attended a funeral. And at the funeral, the minister, so my background is some pretty fundamentalist Protestant church upbringing, Netherlands Reformed Church and its iterations, American Reformed. And this minister who gave the message is a very experienced minister who preaches at the Bethel Church, Bethel. And one of the things that he said was that you don't need morality, you just need Jesus. And I checked it out with the three relatives, my cousins, who I was sitting with. We also have all four of us have similar views about religion and life. And I said, did I hear that right? And they said, yeah, that's what he said. I actually wrote to the church and asked, did I hear that right? I haven't heard back. So they probably don't want to talk to somebody who would ask that question, but it got me thinking about how one might hear that. If you don't need morality, you just need Jesus. Does that mean that it's okay to do whatever you do, whatever you want? And then it'll be okay in the end because you're a believer? Or maybe if I look at it through the lens that I have from the Buddha, it's like to have Jesus is to have love and respect and the qualities that it would take to be to fit in heaven. And I'm a Buddhist nun, and this is a Buddhist program, but it's worth thinking about, like, with karma, where we go from here and where we are here in this world and going from one situation to the next, as we change, as we develop our own qualities, we find ourselves among different kinds of people and different situations. It doesn't mean that there are no troubles, of course, but how we live and how we act, how we speak, and how we think shapes our future. And I think many of us can attest to the fact that there's been change in our lives since we've picked up the practice, that we've improved our own reactions to things and our own ways of doing things, and even the things we're interested in, and whether or not we are surrounding ourselves by, as was mentioned a moment ago, the images of people we look up to, and those people are people with a lot of moral virtue and kindness and wisdom. And, when I think of what it would be to have Jesus, quote unquote, it would mean a transformation of one's life to the point where there's no harm done to living beings, where there's love for everyone. There's no racism or sexism or putting down of anyone, no suppression or taking advantage of other people or even other living beings. That the heart just couldn't go there. And I think it's a really valuable reflection, that to have the Dhamma in the heart, because the Dhamma is universal. Ajahn Ganha said this frequently, that all the religions have the same aim. But if people are fighting with each other, they're not following religion. They're not following the real religion. The real religion is Dhamma. It doesn't mean it's Buddhist. It's the way things are. How do we know what the way things are is? If we watch people who are, maybe have a lot of popularity or take a lot of space in the airwaves, but they're not moral, then we might follow that without really thinking about it. But if we really reflect on, what makes a life happy, what makes a life safe, it's really developing our Pāramī. It's developing our morality. And when we see the results of actions in this very life, we can also extrapolate until we have some direct experience of what's beyond this world. We can at least imagine, what would it be like in a heaven realm? How would you get there? I don't think you can get there by just saying, I believe this. And that's kind of the training I got from the time I was young. My mother always said that. She said, I can't accept that idea that you just say, I believe this, and then you are in. She's like, no, you have to have a change of heart. You have to have that beautification of the mind. And that is really based on moral virtue. It's based on the precepts, first and foremost, the 5 precepts. So one of the things we're going to do this morning is offer the opportunity to take the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. I'm going to start doing that on these day-long days, the last Saturday of the month. So we'll do that before we go to questions. But, to really think about what those precepts mean is so valuable, because there are some gray areas where we can really make progress in our own development. And one of the gray areas that we started to get into a little bit on Wednesday night, because we were studying a sutta called the Chana Ovada in the Middle Length Discourses. And it's about this monk, Venerable Chana, who was really gravely ill and in a tremendous amount of pain. And he was visited by Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahachanda. And he told them that he didn't have any reason to keep living and he was going to take his life. And the Venerable Sariputta was so kind and really said don't do that. If you need medicine, I'll find medicine for you. If you need an attendant, I'll take care of you. If you need food or something, anything you need, I'll get it and I'll take care of you, which is just touching. From like the first right-hand man, right-hand monk for the Buddha. He's got so many students and he's, you might say really up there. No, he's gonna take care of this monk, But the monk is telling them that he's already awakened, he's an arahant. They weren't convinced until after he died, and they asked the Buddha where he went, and the Buddha said, he told you, he's finished. So this gray area around killing is something that we talked about a little bit. And then this post on our community WhatsApp was about this talk that was given at the same time, I think on Wednesday evening, by Ajahn Nisabo, was about euthanasia, putting down animals, death with dignity or assisted suicide, depending on which way you talk about it. And his talk is so lovely. He really addressed so much of the difficult aspects of this, because many of us have had our lives touched by suicide, whether we've thought about it ourselves or maybe tried it, or have had some loved one go in that way, and then also these questions of end of life choices and what's really in accordance with Dhamma. And to reflect on these things is really valuable. And I really encourage you to listen to his talk. And I don't know how much I'll go into it here, but to really say that it's so important to really look at that first precept and try to carry it out in our life with all beings as much as we possibly can, and to experience the shift in our heart that happens as a result of care and kindness to living beings, and the respect and the valuing of life, even if it's riddled with pain and suffering, to respect the changes that can occur through that process in the mind, and how that's the most important thing that we can do is have the mind develop, and our opportunity to do that in a human life. So of course there's so many different kinds of situations, and it's important to not be harsh with ourselves at all for whatever's happened before. This is another part of Sila. How we think is so important. I mean, those actions of not killing, not stealing, not, conducting ourselves harmfully around sexual energy, not lying. These things are fundamentals to our morality. But where does our purity in these things come from? It comes from the way we think. It's, the Buddha said that the mind is the forerunner of all things. And it comes from being aware of what's the impact when I do certain things. What is the result? And when we practice with things that are considered to be not as crucial, not as heavy, like not killing insects, not killing animals, these kinds of things help us to see, and it helps the mind to become more released from the stains of harshness, and find a gentleness, a transformation in our heart. And when it comes to those challenging questions about end of life for our pets, perhaps, and many people have put down pets, and I'm not trying to pass judgment on any situation at all, but to recognize the value of caring for a living being as they proceed towards death, and the body going through those changes of decay, and to recognize the value that can be there for life, for the mind, even of an animal that we don't really know. It's hard because we don't really know how they're doing inside. It may look hard on the outside, but we don't really quite know what might be transforming internally. And of course, the other precepts too. I guess the last thing to say about killing is, referring back to a previous talk I gave about my cousin Harry. He's actually my cousin-in-law, and his experience in Vietnam. And I'm not going to talk about it again here, but there's that talk. I don't remember what it got called in that, but you can find it on the YouTube channel. Maybe somebody will put the title in the chat. I'm not sure, but there's this incredible kind of potential for safety in our life if we provide that safety to others. It sounds a little mystical, or maybe someone could think it's kind of pie in the sky, but it's not. It's like this gift of safety that we give when we keep precepts is such an amazing act of generosity and kindness. And not only do all beings that cross our path benefit, but we benefit probably the most. So we're gonna take the precepts, and today for this Daylong, I want to think like use that reflection of Sila, how it's showing up in our life, how we might want to fine tune it, and maybe more into the deeper reaches of how that shows up in our mental activity, in the mind. We have all of these opportunities to change. The simple kinds of things that cause us to feel aggravated, irritated, angry. We can reflect on that and decide to respond differently. And this is also Sila. This is also moral virtue. It's like the moral virtue starts to be laid in at a deep level in the system, in our own system. And it's like, having joy in what we're doing. And when things aren't going the way we want them to go, to have appreciation for what hasn't gone wrong, or have appreciation for what we can learn from what goes wrong. And, to be able to make mistakes and laugh and learn, or make mistakes or endure and experience mistakes other people make, and not take it so seriously. Be forgiving and recognize, yeah, I've made that mistake too myself, or it's easy for me also to say the wrong thing or forget something or whatever. I was re-listening to the advice Ajahn Ganha gave to the bhikkhunis when we visited him in the fall. And a lot of it was similar to what he had been saying to everyone. Be happy in your work. He said a lot of people feel like they're made to work, they're forced to work, or they're forced to study. But if we recognize that, make the choice that I'm doing this because I want to do it, or I'm going to do this in a way that I can enjoy it and make it and be happy. This makes such a difference. Instead of, the bathroom really needs to be painted and now I've got to go do it, and kind of like not liking it, to bring some joy and happiness into it. I'm reminded of my mom. She would talk about her growing up on a farm. It was a vegetable farm, so she and her sisters would work out in the field in the summer every day except Sunday. And it's not an easy life, picking vegetables and fruit and that kind of thing. But she said her father always made it fun. They always helped each other with the work. And it's like we can really change the whole dynamic, whether it's some kind of work like that, or at the office, or wherever, by our attitude. And so, like if we think, I'm going to accept this situation as it is, that's the first step. And I'm going to bring goodness to it. I'm going to bring a good attitude to it, and I'm going to bring goodness to it. This is part of Sila. And then we have an opportunity to change things that are not good. And Ajahn Chah apparently used to say, if it's not good, make it good. If you can't make it good, let it die. And I think this is really valuable reflection. And that goodness, there's always Sila involved in that, moral virtue, our morality, in the way we think, in the way we speak, in the way we act. I think what I love about it most is the fading away of regret. You keep the precepts, for a year, and you've got a year of not having made any big mistakes. You keep the precepts for a decade, and you have a decade of not making any really big mistakes. And when I talk about mistakes, it's not like, oh, I invested in the wrong thing or lost my money or something. Who cares? That's just stuff. There's all kinds of mistakes that we can make that really don't matter that much. But what matters is the mistakes we make with our morality. And that's really what's important. Because as we develop morality, we also develop wisdom. We also develop our meditation. The Sila, Samadhi, and Panya go together. This is what really matters. And even if you think that when you take your last breath, that's the last of you, it's still going to matter in this life. But I'm convinced, no, it's more than that, that there's much more beyond this world, and it really matters there what happens next. And when you really look at morality and the things that the temptations we might have to break precepts, or the ways in which we react that are not kind or compassionate or patient or honest, it's about self. It's about this idea of me and mine. And that's a false premise. So if we can, really let go of that self, and this is, Ajahn Ganha was talking about this a lot. He said, if you don't have the self, if you know that that's not there, well, he related it actually to a level of samadhi that you can have all the time. And then there's no wish ever to break a precept. If we really pay attention to what's motivating us, it's this idea of self. When we're doing things that are harmful. And it's like it's interesting, with the Dhamma, you just look at any piece and then you get the whole thing. It leads to the final end of suffering, if we really are willing to see it and willing to change. That's within our own power. So this morning I had a really nice experience of this. So the painting that was going on at the Hermitage kept us up a bit later than usual, and then Ayya Chitananda's been staying in the loft of my kuti because of the visiting of other nuns, and there was some noise around 5 a.m. and I could have slept another hour, I think, if there hadn't been noise. But I was having this dream that there were some kind of critters doing something on the roof, but no, it was Ayya Chitananda. And I was glad to find that out. And instead of being grumpy, I just was like, yeah, I don't need to be like grumpy, where's my extra hour of sleep? It's like I can be happy that she's there, happy that it wasn't a wood rat after all, getting, and it's like this, remembering from times when the reaction would be different, to get cranky about things. And it's like, no, we can really practice to develop our habits to be what we want them to be. And if there were no ability to change, there would be no ability to awaken. So it's a kind of interesting alchemy, though. It's partly what we determine to do and push ourselves to do, and it's partly what arises from the Dhamma to support us, and what arises from our environment to support us. And it's like, yeah, we're talking about these questions about end of life and all that, and then Ajahn Nisabho's talking about the same thing at the same time. We're also all doing the Pāramitas lately, and where is the connection? We don't collaborate about like who's talking about what, but there's some kind of connection that we have in the world, in maybe the Dhamma network. Maybe it's a little like mushrooms, fungus, and trees. They're connected at a deep level. There's something in the air, maybe. I don't know how we want to think about it, but it happens quite a lot that Dhamma, like monastics that we are connected to, will be talking about the same things. And it's like this is all in a way here that for our support, we can use everything that comes our way as an opportunity for practice, as an opportunity for development, an opportunity for Sila, Samadhi, and Panya to really arise in our lives and bring joy, happiness, and relief from suffering. And to think about the incredible gift, the incredible, amazing opportunity that we have to be alive right now, to have the Dhamma available to us. When we find ourselves doing something else, listening to the news, getting wrapped up in politics, getting wrapped up in other things in the world, and even as I say these things, I can feel a change in the energy in my mind. And it's like, no, I don't want to go there. Yes, I want to know what's happening a little bit, enough to make wise decisions and be useful to others who struggle. But, really pay attention to what you're doing moment by moment in your life. It's precious. It's important. It's transformative. So I'm gonna share the screen with the Refuges and Precepts, and if there's someone who would like to lead the request, is there anybody who would do that? Do you know what it is? Yeah, Patty, you gonna go for it? Okay, great. Okay, everyone else stay muted, but Patty will, once I share the screen, and then everybody can follow along. So start by bowing 3 times.
Are we doing Pali as well?
Yeah, just do the regular thing, Patty. Pali, and then on the precepts, do Pali and English.
Okay. Mayang Ayya Tisaranena Saha Pancha Silani Yajama Dutiyampi Mayang Ayya Tisaranena Saha Pancha Silani Yajama Tatiyampi Mayang Ayya Tisaranena Saha Pancha Silani Yajama. We, Venerable Sister, request the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. For the second time, we, Venerable Sister, request the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. For the third time, we, Venerable Sister, request the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. Namo.
So I can do this part and then you respond. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Just do it in Pali, okay? Just repeat what I did.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddham saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tisaranang gamanang nititang.
Ayya.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
Adina dana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
Kamesu mechachara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Kamesu michachara veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from false and harmful speech.
I undertake the precept to refrain from false and harmful speech.
Suramerayama japa madatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Surameraya maja pamadatana veramani sikkhapadam samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
Imani pancha sikkhapadani silena sukha tinyanti silena boka sampada silena nibbute tinyanti tasma silam visodaye.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
About 3 times. Beautiful. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Ayya.
It always makes me happy when people take precepts. I think it's something that we can really rejoice in. It's a lot of mudita. So now, any questions or comments or dilemmas, complaints? Yes, Cynthia.
I have, I guess, a question or a dilemma, and I don't talk about this very often, and I'm realizing that I'm feeling very anxious. But about the first precept, and it literally says not to kill. And I'm bringing this up in this group because I have a great deal of respect for the commitment of the people in this group to the Dhamma. Mm-hmm. And it's just a constant state of bafflement for me. And like I said, I don't talk about it, I don't preach about it, whatever, that people are so committed to non-harming, and they live their lives in such a way where every day they're consuming food that causes immense suffering to countless living beings. And I just don't understand it, and it hurts my heart. And I mean, maybe this is a matter of everybody has their own conscience, and I'm just like attached to my views or something, but I just don't understand it. And I would welcome whatever anybody has to say about that topic.
Well, I'll be the first one. I can completely resonate with what you're expressing, and of course, it's not. It's made clear by the Buddha that he's not requiring us to be vegetarian or vegan, but that it's really, really good not to kill and to not cause killing to the degree we can. And the reason that the Buddha didn't do that, so the 5 precepts are like a baseline for decent human behavior. Stop killing each other, stop killing living beings. There's no, there's a result from killing. There's a I think Ajahn Nisabo called it a scar on the heart. And this is really a beautiful way to put it. I've talked about a stain on the heart. It's like it really matters that what we do, but it's not telling us to not eat meat, and yet, as you say, it causes so much suffering. And I feel like I have encountered, even in myself, I eat eggs. and dairy, which I know is also, we try to get the kind that are not going to be so harmful to the animals. When the eggs probably aren't fertilized and they're not going to become chickens and all that, but I do it because my body needs it now, and I can tell that. And it wasn't always the case. And so it's like I think to first, to not feel offended by hearing these things about the cruelty to animals. And it's not like you have to take on the whole karma of the meat and dairy industry, but it is also the case that we can bring a kind of conscientiousness to our practices of eating and eat less meat. Know why you're eating meat. Are you eating it just for pure enjoyment? You like the taste, or is it a food that's really essential for your health? And we can tell the difference. And I'm just suggesting, whatever we do to reduce our consumption of these foods, I think it's beneficial for everyone. And yet it's also not, I can appreciate why you don't talk about it. I've met a number of militant, what do I want to say?
Militant
vegetarians, who really want to shame people and get angry with them, and that's not the right way either. And it's really important to raise our consciousness around caring. And yes, shame never made anyone care. I agree with you, Jonathan. It's not the way. And people have their family traditions, have turkey on Thanksgiving or whatever, and I think that just the bringing to mind how you want to do things, how you want to live, and what's the value to these things. And I know that when Ayya Chitananda needs to have some fish in her diet, it's just purely because her system is crying out for it. And to get to know our body that way is really valuable. And then, Ajahn Nisabo talked about this in his talk, and I guess there's kind of a trend now that people think that you should go out and kill the animals yourself, like go hunting or something, and then that's okay. And it's like, that's not okay either. That's making it actually worse, because there is a different karma in actually killing than it is to eat what's already killed if it's not killed for you. So as monastics, we're not allowed to consume meat that we think may have been, or we know has been killed for us. And I think this is the Buddha's way to try to encourage people in the direction of harmlessness, without making it so stringent that people turn off. And that's not quite right either. It's not like he ever watered down the Dhamma in any way. That it's more about what is the karma really, and how does that affect us and the world. And so this is where our reflection needs to be, and making those efforts to overcome our attachment to likes, what we like and dislike, and and begin to think in a broader terms. It's my
So I just have one question on, I appreciate everything that you said, but the question about not eating if you know that the animal has been killed for you, which to me seems kind of like completely irrelevant in this society. It's like you go to the grocery store and there's a piece of a cow there, you know,
yeah.
it's so impersonal that it
Yeah.
seems like that doesn't really come into play.
Yeah, I think for us as monastics in this
Yeah.
modern time or in this part of the world, I mean, that still could be the case in other parts of the world where, you know, people are farming and they kill an animal for the event that they want the Buddhist monks to come to, you know, that could still happen. I remember when I was a child, my extended family would come to the farm to have a weekend of camping, and one of the families in that extended family group did a lot of barbecuing. They would take a whole pig or a whole something and make a pit and charcoal and barbecue it on a spit. And so one year my dad decided to slaughter one of the goats, one of the young goats he had. And I remember like them taking this goat and hanging it by its hind legs in the barn and slitting its throat, and all the other goats screaming from the pen. They couldn't see it, but just, it was so horrible. And putting this carcass on a spit, and, you know, I mean, if we have those kinds of experiences, you know, we want to stay far away from that whole activity. And anyway, I get what you're saying about the impersonal nature of it, and this is so true in our society in so many ways. We block away, we try to hide or shield or cover up the unpleasant part of things, like, you know, the way the body of someone who's just passed away gets whisked away into some back room space somewhere, you know. The way we treat all kinds of things that could negatively affect our sensibilities. But we need to look at the way things actually are. You know, the animal that was the living being, and what its life was like before it came onto my plate. And again, not to, you know, it's just the Dhamma. It's just looking at the way things are and making decisions about how we want to do things. And like I said, if we're eating for our health, that's one thing. But a lot of times we eat things that are totally against our health. So just, you know, being aware of if I'm following my likes and dislikes, my preferences and my habits, is that really getting me where I want to go? That's more the way to think of it, I think. Thank you, Cynthia. Did you have any more you wanted to say?
No, that was, I mean, I just wanted to get your perspective and raise the question and see what other people had to say.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Neil?
Yeah, Cynthia brought to my mind the fact that yesterday I was listening to public radio, and there was a program about how electric cars, which are, supposed to be contributing to our exploitation of fossil fuels and the environment. And it turns out that apparently electric car batteries require cobalt.
Hmm.
Right now, cobalt is coming from mines in Africa, where people are being basically working as slaves in a system that uh, 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 where there are like hundreds of thousands of people who can't get any other job, and they're forced to work for like $1 a day or something. I don't remember all the details. And I just like it. I was driving and I like threw up my hands, and it was like, there doesn't seem to be anything we can do that doesn't improve one thing but create more suffering in another way. I don't know. I'm not making a point. I'm just saying that like at some point, I mean, I don't know. It's just the complexity of the modern world just doesn't seem to solve anything.
It's not just the complexity of the modern world, though. This has always been the case. You try to improve something in samsara, and there's some kind of downside that comes with it. And that is, try to find any example where that is not true. I have not found any myself. This is the nature of samsara. There's the dark and the light. And of course, we see this horrible thing happening, and then we do what we can to change it. These people need a real way to make a living. They need the basic requisites of life. We need to have that in our mind, and that in our reason for voting for people and for promoting policies and in organizations and shopping at the places where they are going to be fair in trade, and all that kind of stuff. And we can't stop this mess. We can't clean up this whole mess. So we can throw up our hands momentarily, but we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We have to keep trying to make choices that are the best we can with as much information as we can get about, what we're doing, and in the process, not go crazy, not like tip so far that we're become obsessed with, not to become obsessed with things, and also not to be, oh, well, that's just the way samsara is, so what? Insensitive, lax, or take the high road, as if we're beyond it all. We're not beyond it all. So it's really important to see it all with wisdom, and to hold things in balance. Remember, we're in samsara, and do the best we can. And the most important thing is having the right mind, the attitude, the perspective, the wisdom, along with the compassion. Do the best we can to do the right thing. What do you think of that, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, what else can you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. There's a bunch of stuff going on in the chat. I don't know if there's anything I need to address in there. Ayya Chitananda, are you watching the chat?
I think it's okay, Ayya. It's good discussion, but I don't think you have to talk about any of it.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you. Janica?
Well, I appreciate Neil bringing that topic up. I feel the same way myself often, and also your response, because how the positive, I guess, of that is, especially of your response, is that I don't know what's going on in another person's life, and their decision to do something which might appear distasteful to me may very well be the best decision for them. And so it just, I guess, helps me, or I have to remember to have understanding and compassion and accept what's going on in the world around me, not knowing what are all the factors that that person or group is dealing with and making their decision.
Yeah, so true. And so true in so many ways, you know, like we all each have our own experience of growing up and being in whatever groups we're in. For myself as a white person, how can I understand what people who have, you know, of color experience and on a day-to-day basis, and it's my job to understand as best I can and to be an ally as best I can and anti-racist and, you know, all of those things, and to keep holding that in mind, that we don't really know. We don't really know what's going on in another person's mind, life. We do know what's wholesome and unwholesome. We need to have clarity around that and to continually abandon the unwholesome and cultivate the wholesome, and to continually move in that direction and encourage others to do the same. So the Buddha talked a lot about, you know, talking in favor of doing, keeping the precepts, talking in favor of, you know, going against our desires, you know, all these things that we know are beneficial to also, not only do we do them, but we talk about them too, just trying to encourage that movement in a good direction without being judgmental. The Buddha would always, you know, often throw, not always maybe, but often put in, you know, like, but don't think you're better than somebody else because you're keeping the precept and they're not, or some such thing. Your virtue is purified and you think theirs isn't. Don't put yourself above anybody else. That's only the sense of self again. Don't put yourself below, don't put yourself equal, don't think in those terms. Really come from the Dhamma. And to remember that the Dhamma is alive in this moment. We need to connect in this present moment with that Dhamma. It's not about just memory of, you know, lists or tenets or whatever. It's about feeling that in us, seeing it as it is. Yeah, Chitananda.
There was a good question in the chat from Ling. She says, what is the best practice for after breaking a precept, such as saying harsh words from irritation, complaining about someone due to their wrong behavior, stuff like that, besides telling yourself, try to not do that again? Is there anything like a practice that can help stop this habit?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. One is to, and you might be doing this already, I've said it before, you know, to go back to, in your memory, back to what was happening before we broke the precept. You know, what were the influences? What was happening? What was I thinking? Because a lot of times our thinking is focused on what other people are doing and it's not focused on what we're doing. And we need to shift that. So, like working with the feelings that are arising, no one can stop feelings of frustration or anger, or whatever, fear, whatever might be arising in us. That's just normal. That's just old conditioning coming up. That's vipaka karma. But then when we put our attention on, oh, this person should never have said that, they're or what they're saying or doing, and putting our attention on that and feeling very justified or whatever, when we have our mind on the circumstances and other people's behavior, then we're likely to break precepts, because there's this, conditioning that causes us to move in that direction. So going back to what was happening before, and really looking at it and really feeling it, and then thinking through, what would I like to do next time? It's not just kind of slapping ourselves on the wrist and saying, I don't want to do that again. We can't really change this by force. It doesn't really work. What works is the wisdom, developing the wisdom around what kinds of situations trigger me. And then even maybe we're walking into such a situation and we know it, and then we can arm ourselves, guard ourselves already with the intention to feel it, but not react on it, not react to it. And, having the wisdom to know what's dangerous and what's not, staying away from what's dangerous as best we can, that kind of thing. So I would recommend those things. And then the practice itself of the Brahma Viharas, if we do that every day, to really condition the mind, the heart to be loving and compassionate and joyful and equanimous, there's a wisdom quality there that continues to be conditioned into us. And then sometimes our reactions change and we don't even realize why, but it's actually that ongoing practice. So do that, as a way of putting in causes and conditions for the heart to be more patient and resilient. And then the other possibility is, instead of just talking to ourselves about it, that we have a partner that we talk to about these things, a confession partner, which is going to be encouraged in our KBV Upasika training program that we're planning to start after the next Thailand trip. And people will be, anyone can sign up for it, and it will be something you sign up for a year and commit to. But you won't get the details for a while. We're going to work on that still some more. But part of that is the encouragement to have, or the requirement in that case, to have a partner that you talk to, a Dhamma buddy. And we can do that anyway, if we talk to someone else about it, the way the monks and the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis do, you really get the benefit of someone else's perspective on what happened and some encouragement. You definitely want to pair up with someone you feel you can really trust, and someone who's going to use their own Dhamma wisdom to support you. So that can help. Another thing that can help is if we have a determination, okay, I understand this pattern that I have, and I don't want to continue to do that. I realize we just went over time. I'll wrap this up in a second. I don't want to continue to do that. So I make a determination, okay, the next time this arises, I'm going to do this other behavior instead. And then if we, every time we're able to do that, the more the karma gets made to be able to continue that way in the future. we also want to evaluate how it went and see if that's really the approach we want to use, or do we want to refine it? So that kind of reflection, the moksha, I think it is. And so it's like, or if we didn't do it, then to redetermine it. And as we say, sort of reaffirm our commitment or our adhitthana, which is another Pāramī that we're going to talk about on another session, is use some physical action. You know, like you're sitting down, so stand up, kind of like get that strength there in the body, and feel it. But like I said, force is not enough. We hear a lot from the Kruba Ajahns about fighting the kilesas, but we have to fight them with wisdom. It's not just willpower. So I'm gonna wrap it up here for anyone who has to go, and I really thank you all for your practice. And there's going to be meditation now, and at 1 o'clock we'll come back and do something together, and then again at 3 p.m. Pacific time, and the program will end at 4.